Alrighty, welcome back. It's the Week 12 prediction show right here on Saturday Snap Count. We've got 6 different games in 4 different time slates for you that we're going to predict tonight. And you guys will have it on Friday morning, ready for Saturday. So let's get into this right now. We're going to roll the music and we're going to get the show on the road. Let's have a day. Alrighty, welcome back. It's a great night. It is currently 10:09 p.m. on Thursday, November 13th, and we have 6 games to predict for this weekend. It's going to be a huge weekend for playoff implications. It's going to be a huge weekend for conference championships, and it's going to be a huge weekend for your boy because I will be in Oxford, Mississippi at this time tomorrow, and I will be ready to sleep one more time and then wake up and give it my all for the team right here, the Ole Miss Rebels. I will be boots on the ground in Oxford, in Vaught Hemingway Stadium for Florida coming into town against Ole Miss. Couldn't be happier about it. It's going to be a huge weekend. And luckily the card is a little bit smaller, so the show should fly by. But it makes it easier for me too, because while I'm in Oxford, it's less for me to have to worry about and keep up with. Just going to try to enjoy that. But before we get into today's show, I have a really big announcement. Really big. Bigger than I can visualize on this screen. Or visualize to you over this microphone if you're listening on podcast. But we've got 2 new partners to the show. That's right. We got 2 new partners. We've got Fanatics and we've got StubHub. And they've been nice enough to partner with me, allowing me to promote their brand, help out the people who listen to the show, and most importantly, helping me out make the show. So it's not a sponsorship. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. They're not giving me any money to do this, and they're not sponsoring the show in any way. They're simply giving me an avenue to promote their brand, and then if it all works out, it helps us. It will help us improve the show where we can, and hopefully help some folks get some great products out there. So I have my very first 2 ad reads for the Saturday Snap Count in history of the show. So super excited. So bear with me. Let's go through these really quick. First up, Fanatics. Whether you're gearing up for game day or repping your team at the office, Fanatics has you covered with officially licensed merch for every league, every team, and every fan, especially college football. Jerseys, hats, collectibles, and more. Visit the link in the description to help support the show. Fanatics, officially licensed everything. Let's talk about StubHub. If you're ready to be in the building for the next big moment, the next big concert, game, show, StubHub is the place to get your tickets with total confidence. With transparent pricing, verified tickets, and their Fan Protect guarantee, you can focus on the experience, not the stress. Check out StubHub.com through the link in the description and grab your tickets today. StubHub, be there live. Alrighty, guys. Appreciate you going through that with me. It's a monumental day for the show here. Monumental in another way too. I got the mic off the stand. I'm freehanding the mic. This probably sounds terrible because I'm moving it back and forth, but I decided to switch it up. I wanted to be able to lean back a little bit on today's show. Just keep it chill. Just keep it chill. It's a Thursday prediction show. It's the best show of the week. It's my favorite time of the week. We've got some great predictions, so we're going to keep it chill. We're just going to try it out. I will put the graphic up at the end. So if you're crunched on time or you're just sick of listening to me, but you just want to support me, I really appreciate it. And you can fast forward to the end, and I will put a graphic up as I'm wrapping up to recap all my picks. But if you're willing to sit here and listen to me go through each of these games, then we only got 6 tonight. It won't take too long. So bear with me here, and let's get started. Saturday morning, we've got 1 game. Saturday afternoon, we've got 1 game. And then Saturday night, we've got 3 games, and then we've got 1 late game. Some of them are feel picks, picks that we just kind of going with the flow, kind of going off of our instinct. And some of them, we've got some good analytics, some good data, some good research, and we feel really good about all of them, and all for different reasons. No games outside of Saturday for this slate. I know we've been sprinkling in some Thursdays and some Fridays the last couple of weeks because that's what the point of the year we're at, where we're like there's football like every night till February, which is great. But we tend to try to just focus on Saturday. But we've got 4 different time slates, at least one game. And the first one, the only one we have for Saturday morning, is Notre Dame at Pitt. That is obviously the college game day destination this weekend. Pitt is the underdog by 12.5 points at home. The first thing that I'm going to do is actually talk about the against the spread record. I'm going to switch it up on the show. This show, we're not even going to mention SRS and strength of schedule because it's failed us. I really like what it is. I like what it stands for. And I think it can be useful at times. But unfortunately, it has failed me. And because it's failed me, I'm not putting it in the graveyard. I'm just giving it a week off, just like I had a week off last week. Now the SRS model has a week off. And we're going to do this. We're gonna get away from the numbers a little bit. But what numbers we are going to look at is, again, the against the spread record, because that's what we do on the show. I guess this is a good a time as ever to talk about our disclaimer that we put in most every show, and that is this is not a gambling show. It's not necessarily even really a pick show, even though I will refer to some of these predictions as picks. But there's a simple reason that we use the spread and very rarely the over or under for a point total, and that is so we can further emphasize the confidence in the winner or the loser of the game. I'm not encouraging you to gamble. I'm not partnering with any sports books like I partner with Fanatics and StubHub. I'm not doing any of that. I'm simply using spreads and overs and unders to further validate my prediction instead of saying, oh, Pitt at home as a 12.5 point underdog, I think Notre Dame is going to win the game. Well, that's not that hard because Notre Dame's a 12.5 point favorite. I would say most people would agree that they're probably going to win the game. So instead of doing that, I'm picking spreads on all these games. So that's your disclaimer. So don't get mad at me if you gamble on these predictions and you lose. And I'm also not telling you to go gamble. So let's get into the actual game themselves. But with that being said, Pitt is covering over 70% of the time this season. I don't have the exact against the spread record, but it is in green, and green tells me one thing, that's over 70%. Notre Dame is around 500. We know that they had a shaky start to the year, Notre Dame did, but Pitt is kind of the inverse. They had a great start to the season, had 2 hiccups along the way, adverse to Notre Dame having them immediately off the jump. And now both of these teams meet. College game day is there. I would say both teams absolutely have to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. Notre Dame is very much more alive than Pitt is. Pitt's only hope is really that somehow it shakes out that they can get in the ACC championship game, which I don't even know is even really possible at this point. But here's what we have on this game. First thing, as I said, College Game Day will be there, and this year the home team at College Game Day destinations is 9-2. Now that's something I normally wouldn't really look into, but you have to kind of think about it. And I think about one game in particular, and that was 2011. I was a freshman in high school, and College Game Day came to Oxford for Ole Miss versus Alabama, and we won that game, and we were not the better team. We were a good team, and so were they. But it was one of the biggest wins in our program history. I think anybody would, if you ask any Ole Miss fan right now to name their top 5 most significant wins in the last 15 to 20 years, that game would be on everybody's list. So it was a huge game, and I thought about in this game, I'm like, okay, first off, it's kind of weird that game day is going to a game where the spread's 12.5 points, but be that what it is, I had to think, okay, so how can they sway this game? Does it really matter? So I looked into it, and overall, over the history of College Game Day, home team is a little over 500, just slightly over 50% win rate for the home team. But lately, the last 2 years, if you include this year and then all year last year, there is a major margin of victory for the home team. So again, I usually don't use numbers like that or stats like that, but it's something to think about. Everything is going Pitt's way right now. They are absolutely boat racing teams. They're scoring tons and tons of points. They have some good metrics to go on their side. Both of these teams have to win this game. I don't think you can say that either team has the ability to lose. Actually, I'm telling you that neither team has the ability to lose. So both teams' backs are against the wall. There's not much on the surface that says, well, this is going to be lopsided. There's no way fill in the blank wins this game. It's not that. So college game day being there on the home campus of Pitt definitely means something to me. It adds into the environment, to the hype of the whole thing. What else do we have? Can you see me if I do this? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're good. Pitt scoring the sixth most points in the country with almost 40 points per game. It's actually 39.7, so I round up to 40 points per game. And they're 25th in defensive yards per game. So not only are they scoring tons of points, but they're not allowing very many yards on the ground. Now, unfortunately, that number isn't really translating to points. They're not very far down in points per game given up by the defense, but they're not, 25th like they are in yards. So that's one of those things where, it's not going to like jump out and grab you being that high in the yards per game category defensively, but it is something that you can essentially hang your hat on for sure, because you have to be doing something right. What else? Pitt has the leading touchdown receiver in the ACC. Raphael Williams leading the conference in touchdown receptions. Track meets is what I had written down. Sorry, man, I get on there and I can't even read my own handwriting after I do it. Like literally, I wrote this down today and I can't read my own handwriting. Got track meets written down. And again, you go look at Pitt's last couple games. I mean, their last several games. It is insane how many points you're scoring and how many points they're beating teams by. It's very much like Texas Tech-esque. It's just very much under the radar. Texas Tech, we've always said, they're just beating teams. Like they have their one loss, and then every other game is like they're beating them by double digits. And Pitt is very similar to that. They have two losses, but you look at their wins, and they're not close. They're not relatively close at all. Now, they're probably going to face the toughest team they faced all year in Notre Dame. But I would say that equally so, Pitt is probably one of the harder, tougher teams that the Notre Dame has played, with the exception of their two losses being Miami and Texas A&M. But that was also week 1 and week 2. I mean, we're in a totally different position in week 12 than we were in week 1 and 2. Looking back at week 1 and 2 is maybe good for metrics and stats, but when you talk about preparedness for a game, I mean, it's just totally different. It's a totally different world that we're living in right now. So, and Pitt has the third best run defense in the country, which definitely makes me feel a certain type of way when it comes to how Notre Dame can win this game. Sorry, my computer glitched out a little bit. But it definitely makes me feel a certain type of way about how Notre Dame can win the game. I mean, you have a freshman quarterback who has definitely been in moments similar to this. I don't think Pitt's going to be overwhelming by any means, but it will be a crazy environment. It will be a crazy home game for them. They're going to go straight from college game day into the stadium because it's an 11 a.m. kick Central Time. So I think it means something, and I think it's getting towards the end of the year, and you have the additional pressure of having to win. So you look at C.J. Carr being a freshman quarterback at Notre Dame, who has had the luxury since week 3 moving on of kind of having cushions from other parts of their team, whether it is the running game or the defense or whatever it may be. It's not like all on him. And these are the type of games where your quarterback has to go out and win. You look at other teams that have lost close games. Oklahoma Ole Miss is a great example for a game. John Mateer just wasn't always there. He didn't have the best game, and they lost a game by single digits that could have arguably at some points went either way. But in a game like that where there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of pressure, There's just a lot going on, a lot of pageantry. You just got to have the one player step up, and it have to be the quarterback, and then everybody else just do their job. So this number is really big for me. It just is really big. If this number was a single digit, it would be a lot easier for me. Um, but a home dog at that many points is just tough. If College Game Day wasn't going to be there, I might look at it differently. But obviously, they see something that I'm not going to say I'm missing, but they see something in this game. They see that obviously, maybe it's just a chance for them to boost up the ACC as a conference, even though Notre Dame's not in that conference, but Pitt is, and the ACC is kind of a wild card right now as far as their race for the championship. I don't really know what the motivation is for College Game Day, but to me, knowing the potential that Pitt has, knowing the pressure that is going to be on both of these teams, I would rather lean with the home team, who's a 12.5 point dog. So you're going to get a 12.5 point cushion just to keep it close. We just need them to keep it close. We don't need them to win, although I think they have the ability to win. And I'm just going to have to, believe it when I see it from Notre Dame. If Notre Dame's going to go in here in this spot, in this situation, and beat them by 13 points, I'm just going to have to see it. And if I see it, I'll tip my hat to them. And it comes down to that right there. So give me Pitt plus 12.5 to start the day. And then let's move to the afternoon. We got one game in the afternoon. Oklahoma at Alabama. Alabama favored minus 6.5. Now, this is probably one of the ones we feel probably more strongly about than anything. And it's probably not the direction you think. If you think with some common sense, which I commend you for, then I'm going to come in here and pick Oklahoma because it would help Ole Miss's resume. You're unfortunately wrong. I would love for Oklahoma to win this game because of that. Help boost Ole Miss's resume, make our win on the road against Oklahoma look a lot better. But unfortunately, I'm just not there with this one. And let me explain why. Number one good thing I can say about Oklahoma is they are 100% success rate in the red zone. And that's very impressive, but that is just any points at all. So it's not like they're scoring a touchdown every time they get in the red zone. They just score points every time they get in the red zone. Now, the question is, and why that actually just doesn't sway you one direction or the other, is simply because they have to get to the red zone first. John Mateer has not been himself since the hand surgery. I think he's gotten significantly better from the first game back, and I think he's gotten incrementally better each week, but I do not think he is 100% at this point still. It's just something that you just don't realize unless you've ever thrown a football or played football. Like, imagine how much of your hand it takes to actually commit the action of throwing a football, and think about just having surgery anywhere on your hand. I mean, think about how debilitating like a hangnail is. And when you're just going through your day, your normal day, typing on a keyboard, holding a device, cooking, whatever, like a hangnail can just hurt all day because of just doing normal things. Now think about like cutting open your hand, stitching it back together, and then trying to go throw a football at the second highest level in the sport behind the NFL. It sounds impossible, and it probably should have been impossible because he probably shouldn't have come back when he did. And it just obviously they're not very confident in their backup, which is fine. It's not our decision to make, but we can't sit here and act like he hasn't been the same player. And if you look at the Michigan game from Oklahoma, it kind of shows that he can run the ball and he can sustain an offense running the ball, but how often can he run the ball? It's like Jackson Dart. He can only get hit so many times before he's bound to get hurt as the quarterback. He's not built to get hit that many times. So when you say, well, his hand's hurting, so we're going to run him more. Well, now he's getting hit more. So it just doesn't work. And I think they've definitely bounced back from the Ole Miss loss. But they've had a super tough schedule since that game. And I don't know, they played Ole Miss and they played Tennessee. Now they play Alabama. It's just not easy. And it's a tough stretch. So that's what kind of veers me away from their 100% success rate in the red zone because they just got to get there first. And honestly, John Mateer has to step up. He's got to be the guy to win this game for him. And again, just don't know if he can do it. I just don't know if he can do it. If Ty Simpson, however, steps up, which he's done multiple times, he's shown no signs of slowing down. There's no question who wins this game. No question. If both quarterbacks play average, Alabama wins. If both quarterbacks play exceptional, Alabama wins. The only way that Alabama loses this game is if Ty Simpson has a bad game and John Mateer has an above average game. What's the likelihood of that? Let's be real. What's the likelihood? I don't know that it's very big. And you look at how do you beat a quarterback? Well, you have to get him on the ground. You have to get him on the ground. Everybody talks about Oklahoma's defense, how it keeps them in games. It's really strong. It's a super strong unit. And that's how you're going to beat Ty Simpson, is you got to put pressure on him. I'm not going to say you got to make him move around because he can move. But you got to put pressure on him. You got to get him on the ground. And you look at Ole Miss, what they did against Oklahoma, and they did it at Oklahoma too. This game is in Alabama. And if you look at the Ole Miss game at Oklahoma and you look at what they did, guess how many sacks Ole Miss gave up? If I'm asking you the question, it's probably pretty obvious. It's 0. And I can tell you right now that Alabama's offensive line is better than Ole Miss's offensive line every day of the week. Every day, 7 days a week. So if Ole Miss can't give up a sack, I don't know that Alabama's going to give up a sack. And everybody talks about how good the Oklahoma defensive line is. I haven't seen it. I just haven't. They're one of those teams that, like, you look at the stats, they're top 10 in, like, every defensive category, and you're like, how? I've watched all the games. How? It just works out that way. So unless they can get pressure to Ty Simpson, which I don't think it's going to be excessive, if at all, I just don't see them able to pull this game out. Alabama is really one-dimensional in the pass game, and it doesn't really matter. They've not needed to run the ball that well all year. Ty Simpson has been the guy. I'm telling you, I said this about the Alabama-Wisconsin game earlier this season because I watched Alabama-Wisconsin, and I kept saying, I'm like, granted, Wisconsin's not a great team, but I kept saying, and this happened against LSU as well, it's like every time Ty Simpson throws the ball, it's to somebody that doesn't have anybody within 5 yards of them. I don't understand how they do it. It's obviously a scheme thing where they have really skilled wide receivers and they scheme it just right that you're always going to have at least one person open. But one sign of a great quarterback is that he can find that guy because it's not always the hot guy. It's not always the hot route. Sometimes you have to go through progressions. Look your way down the field. Go from receiver 1 to 2 to 3. And then by the time 3 is gone, you have to move. And he does really, really good at that. Really well at that. He's really good at that. He does it really well. There we go. There's my English. Yeah, he just does it really well. He's had multiple games where I've watched, and he throws the ball, and every time he throws the ball, there's nobody even in the vicinity. And it's hard to beat. And you know what they said going into the Ole Miss game against Oklahoma? Is that this was going to be the week where Oklahoma's secondary gets exposed. And I don't know that they got exposed necessarily, but we all saw what happened in that game. And I've always said when a team gets their first big loss of the year, I would consider Texas is really Oklahoma's first big loss of the year, but the Ole Miss loss is really what like put them in like gotta win now mode. Is you're putting that on tape for everybody to see. So now that Texas kind of beat them in almost like fluky fashion, you kind of just look past it and it is what it is. Well, then Ole Miss goes into town and beats them, and now everybody has that on tape. Everybody saw what you got exposed in. Everybody saw your weaknesses on display. Now everybody knows how to beat you. And so I think that's really important for me. Looking ahead. And then Oklahoma is terrible in turnover margin. Terrible. So I'm going to lean Alabama in this game. I said it early on. I feel really good about it. It's probably one of the more confident ones that I have this week. If I would have had more time on Tuesday, which I'm the one that determines how much time we have. But I kind of wanted to speed up Tuesday because I didn't have a recap from the previous week. I probably would have made this my early lock on Tuesday. But I'm going to take Alabama minus 6.5. This is it's a one possession spread. It's a touchdown and an extra point. That's just, to me, this should be more. It should be closer to 9, maybe 10 even. Two possessions, touchdown and a field goal potentially. But at 6.5, that's one possession we're talking about. So give me Alabama minus 6.5. And now we move in to the night slate. This is the biggest slate we have. We've got 3 games. And at this point, I will absolutely be on another planet as far as not drug use or substance abuse, but on another planet as far as like at this time of day, I will be firmly planted in Vaught Hemingway Stadium watching a laser show on the field at about 5:30 p.m. And then we will move into the game where we will firmly plant our spot in the playoff. And then around halftime, we will have a drone show to watch of sorts that if someone who was uninhabited to the regular society that we live in and didn't know electricity existed, they would think that it's aliens coming to invade the planet. It's going to be so awesome. So, yeah, at this time, it's going to be crazy. I don't know where I'm going to be or what I'm going to be thinking, but I will be in the stadium and I will be screaming to the point where I may not even be able to do my show on Tuesday because I don't have a voice. But we've got 3 games in the night slate, and we're going to start with the first one, the biggest one. Florida, Ole Miss, minus 15.5. Now, I'm not going to waste the time giving a prediction on this because you know where I'm at. Ole Miss is going to win this game. Ole Miss is going to win this game. They're going to cover. Ole Miss is going to score 30-plus points. All we have to do is keep them at bay. Don't let what happened last year happen again, where we just go in the exact same spot, just went out, and your spot is as safe as it could possibly be. And then the moment gets too big and the pressure falls, and we just kind of like are sitting there with our hands under our butt. We just can't let that happen. So I'm very confident in this team. They have shown all year this year that they do not let the same mistakes from the previous season get them this season. Because we've had multiple times where last year we lost one possession games. We've been in the same spot this year. We've won them. We've had revenge spots already this year, like LSU, where they beat us last year and put us in a really tough spot, and we play them this year and we absolutely dominate them. So I feel really good about how we are going to approach this game with what is on the line and what this game means for the university, what this game means for the city of Oxford, the state of Mississippi, and every single fan of the Ole Miss Rebels. I think it means a ton. I think this is the biggest game of the century, and it's unfortunate that Florida doesn't have a competitive enough team to actually make it like tenfold what it could be. It's just going to be what it is. It may be a blowout, but I'm telling you, this is going to be the most anticipated win in the last decade. Because there's just so much out there. Everybody apparently today, Thursday the 13th, there was some buzz about Lane to Florida. And I don't know where it came from. I searched and searched and searched. Couldn't find any evidence, any true evidence as to why anybody would think that he's going to Florida, but it happened. And everybody and their mama was talking about it. And it was all over the place. And it was panic and it was chaos from both sides. And I have no idea. But if I know Lane, I know that he's going to find a way to troll. This is all part of his plan. And if nothing else, he's going to get us through this season. And if this is the last season that he's with us, so be it, whatever. He got us to a point where we can confidently say we belong. But ultimately, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think we're going to go in here. We're going to totally embarrass Florida. He's going to use it to his advantage to troll everyone. And hopefully he signs an extension as he's walking off the field and really shoves it in everybody's face. But as we know, that's not what's going to happen. We're going to win this game, and nothing's going to change as far as the coaching search goes, and it's going to be until the season's over when he can finally say, okay, it's time to focus on this and make a decision, and it's going to happen. But today was a wild day. There's so much on the line, so I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend All we got to do is win. Just win the game. I really don't even care if it's by 1 point. If it's by 1 point, it's by 1 point. I don't care. I think it's going to be by more than that, but we just need to win because we need to go to the playoff bad. Next game, I didn't really give you a prediction. I said I wasn't going to, and that wasn't a prediction. I didn't really give any data points. I just said what I thought. Oh, I thought my favorite team was going to win. Shocker, shocker. Texas at Georgia. Georgia's favored -6.5 currently. Texas coming off of a bye. Georgia has their third straight SEC game in a row. However, Sark has lost to Georgia twice already in their 2 years in the conference. They're like 11-3 in SEC games in the conference. That sound right? There's something, and they're a large number and 3. A large number of wins, 3 losses. 2 of those losses are to Georgia. That means something to me. I think Texas coming off of a bye can be good and can be bad. We've talked about that before. You come off of a bye where you got to rest and you got to get healthy, but then you get out of game speed and you have to like really jump back in a hurry. And you don't want to do that against one of the best teams in the country because they're going to punch you in the mouth because they're ready to go. And you may not be. So you may not be up to speed. They're going to be up to speed. Texas has the second best run defense in the country, and Georgia is better at rushing the ball than throwing the ball. Now, Gunnar Stockton is a talented quarterback. I have said myself that I think he is. What is happening? I think I have a stampede above me in the apartment above me. Anyway, that got me off my rocker. Gunnar Stockton, yes, Gunnar Stockton. I've said he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the SEC all year. He's not going to light it up on the stat sheet. Nobody's going to really talk about him all that much. I think he may or may not be on the Heisman ballot, like the top 15 list or whatever. It doesn't really mean anything, but he's not what everybody's talking about. Let's not kid ourselves. To me, I've watched enough of him. I would I would take him on my team any day. I think he's that good. But statistically, Georgia is a better rushing team as far as success is concerned. And when you match up that versus Texas's rush defense, it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. Georgia just has to put a bow on this game, really, and that's what I keep thinking about. Georgia, this is their last SEC game of the year. They have 2 non-conference games to finish out the season. So, to me, looking at where they're at, they are 1 win away from not only securing a spot in the I guess they wouldn't secure a spot in the SEC championship, but their odds definitely increase with a win because you close out your conference schedule with 1 loss. It all comes down to what Alabama does in the coming weeks, but nonetheless, it's kind of like this very much feels like they're exempt from the final exam. They've played the same amount of games as all the other SEC teams will eventually. It just happens to work out in a way that they get 2 weeks of non-conference at the end of the year versus somebody else like most other teams that are just playing SEC games through to the end. So there's definitely an advantage there, in my opinion. I think the disadvantage is what you see right now, where they've played 3 straight games in a row in the SEC, and they're all like pretty quality opponents for the most part. So you kind of have to go through that gauntlet, but then it is kind of you get in this position where they're in right now, where it's like, hey, just go out and just do enough. Just do enough to win this game, get it over with, and then we can focus on these non-conference opponents and let the rest of the league just like carnivore itself while we're just chilling over here. Now, granted, they have to play Georgia Tech still, which has playoff implications. But if they go to the SEC championship game, regardless of their wins, they have a chance to get in the playoff. I'm not sure who their next game is after this. It's another non-conference, but I know they finished with Georgia Tech. So my point to that is they can win this game and be, 7-1 in the SEC, firmly in position to play in the championship game depending on what Alabama and A&M do. And then they could go lose the next 2 games and they're not out of it. It's crazy to say, but they're not. They'd be a 3-loss team with only one conference loss, and all they would need is some sort of tiebreaker or way that they can get in. Mostly Alabama losing an additional game in the SEC, which is unlikely, but it's not impossible. Because if A&M is undefeated, Alabama has and Ole Miss has one loss in the SEC, and Georgia has one loss in the SEC, and then Alabama has 2 losses, and everybody else moving down has 2 losses. Well, Georgia has the head-to-head versus Ole Miss, so I just think it's one of those things where they just, like I said, it's like they're exempt from the final exam. They're finishing the season early, and that's the benefit, is you get to finish early, but you've just got to finish. So that's what it feels like to me. Texas is second in sacks in the country, 22nd in tackles for loss, going back to how good their defense is. But they are, however, in the 100s in the rankings as far as penalties. They are one of the most penalized teams in the country. So you might say, Scott, you've just talked about really nothing but about how good Texas's defense is and how much Georgia's gauntlet of a schedule has come up to be. And to that, I say I get it. Here's what I'm thinking. Alabama's the only team in like the last decade or so to go into Athens and beat Georgia. They just did it this year, and it was by 3 points. And Alabama is a special team, whether people want to admit it or not. Now, they're not like Nick Saban dynasty level, but they're one of the best teams in the country. They're dangerous. There's not a single team, there's not a single team in the country that can just walk in and beat them. They give every single team in the country a run for their money, and they went into Georgia, to a Georgia team that is more vulnerable than they ever have been. But at the end of the day, they have Kirby Smart, and they're at home. And Alabama's the only team that's been able to beat them, and they squeaked it out. Is Texas at that level? No. Talent-wise, they can match up. They can match up with size. They can match up with personnel, with talent, whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, you got to have somebody calling the X's and O's, and you got to have somebody executing the X's and O's. And when it comes down to those two things, Sark has proved he's not some elitist tier S level coach. He's a great coach. He's not Kirby Smart level. And they've also proven that their roster has holes. They are vulnerable. They're beatable because they lose games that they just shouldn't have lost, number one. And number two, look at it this way. They had a chance to beat the number one team in the country, Ohio State, and they didn't. And number two, I don't know what number two was because I got sidetracked by number one. Anyway, I just don't see it. You look at the games that they have won, it's been too close. Mississippi State was too close for me. Kentucky was too close for me. They lost to Ohio State, who is arguably going to be as similar to Alabama as as Georgia as they're going to see. Georgia's going to be at home. It's going to be a night game. It's the final SEC game of the year. I think the environment is going to be too much. I think similar to the Alabama game, this is going to be a small enough spread that it's not really going to be as hard as we think it's going to be. 6.5 points. It's a touchdown and an extra point away. So give me Georgia, minus 6.5. I just talked myself into it. I honestly didn't have a pick on my notes. This was the only game where I did not have a pick written out on my notes. I literally talked out my notes and then convinced myself one way or the other, and I just convinced myself of Georgia minus 6.5. Give it to me. Also on some games I forgot to mention, we picked Alabama minus 6.5. Bama is above 70% against the spread this year. Oklahoma is at 500. We picked Ole Miss. They are covering at over 50% on the year, and Florida is covering less than 40%. Texas is covering less than 40%. And now the next game we have, second to last game, Mississippi State on the road at Missouri, minus 7.5. Not a lot of research on this game. This is the field game I was talking about. We actually have the next two. The last two are both field games. Mississippi State has only not covered once. Every game that they've played this year, they've covered except for one. And that was who was that? They got crushed. Texas A&M. It was Texas A&M, one of the best teams in the country. Other than that, no blemishes against the spread for them. Missouri is hovering right around 500. Missouri is in an interesting spot. Missouri is in a very vulnerable spot. There's a lot of talk about Drinkowitz, where he's going, is he staying? And I think it's very valid that they feel this way. And additionally, he said something really weird. I'm going to summarize and paraphrase, so it's not exact, but he basically said something along the lines of, we have mistaken the perception of this league and teams in this league for if you don't make the playoffs, your season is a failure, essentially is what he said. He said, and that's the wrong way to look at it. He said, we should be proud of our success and proud of what these teams are doing. Some of these teams that are, having good seasons, we should be proud of it, and we shouldn't be condemned for not making the playoff. That's an interesting take from someone who's probably not going to make the playoff again. They've been very close time and time again, multiple times, especially 2 years ago. The very last 4-team playoff, they were very close. Ended up playing Ohio State in the New Year's Six Bowl, just like Ole Miss played Penn State. We were very close. Both of us, Missouri and Ole Miss, would have been in that year if there was a 12-team playoff, but it was the year before the 12-team playoff. And then you look at last year, they nearly got in, but they lost one too many games. And now that has happened 2 years in a row, now all of a sudden we should really be proud of these teams, people. It's an interesting perspective from a coach who's been talked about for every job opening in the country and who's also going to miss the playoffs by a narrow margin yet again. I don't want to be the guy that says that's loser mentality, because I do think there's something to say about the teams that go 9-3, 8-4. To me, that is a good. I used to like wish for those seasons. I used to wish for 9-3, 8-4. In fact, I still do. Like that, to me, that's still like my bare minimum. Like, feel good about the football season. If the last game rolls around, the Egg Bowl rolls around, and we're playing our last game to go 8-4 or 9-3. Like, I'm not like all that upset. I would still say, yeah, we're one of the better teams in the country. We're not like national championship level, but we're a pretty good team. So I level with them on that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I just think it's interesting. It's just interesting to say. I mean, and look, we've expanded the playoff twice now, because we originally were at number 1 and number 2 play for the national championship. That's it. There's no qualification method. There's no playoff. There's no win a certain amount of games or win a certain number or a certain type of game. No, there's none of that. You could win a Power 4 conference championship and you weren't even guaranteed to play for the national championship back in the BCS days. So we went from 1 and 2 getting the spot, and then we went to the top 4 getting the spot. So we expanded it to give 2 other teams an opportunity. And then that wasn't good enough. And people complained about teams that were getting left out that were deserving of a chance. And now we've expanded it from 4 all the way to 12. So much so big that now the top 4 seeds get a bye. They don't even have to play the additional game that the other playoff teams have to play. And now that you've missed every cut, every time it gets expanded, now we need to talk about how, hey guys, don't talk mean about these programs. Don't be mean to these programs because they're not going to the playoff. You shouldn't be mean to them because they're not going to the playoff. And sure, I get it. Your job's on the line now if you don't go to the playoff. It's a sucky way to do your life. To go to your job every day. Everybody knows you're giving it 110%. Everybody knows that you care. And everybody knows that you want to win because everybody wants to win. And it's hard to know that everybody knows that. And they still will let you go like you are a fart in the wind. If you don't win the right amount of games and you don't put your program in a position to win a national championship, they will let you go. The program will move on without you. And it's a very, very tough way to live. It's a way that 95% of society doesn't live. 95% of society just has to show up every day and not get in trouble and not fail every single time they do their job, and they're going to keep their job. And you are part of the 5% that you have to be one of the best in the industry to keep your job, and I get it. It sucks. But to say that we need to put more respect on the teams that aren't making the playoff when you're not making the playoff, it's just weird. It's just weird. All that to say, the spot that they're in, I don't love it. I don't even know what the status is on Bo Prabula, the already second string quarterback who has elevated himself to a level of to be the starter by injury, but he's done well. And now he got hurt recently. I don't even know if he's going to be playing or not in this game, or if they're going to be going with the freshman third string. Either way, this is a field game. I have to go with the numbers. And the numbers say Mississippi State covers significantly more times than they do not cover. They have momentum coming off of their first SEC win in like 2 years. They were whatever it was, like 0-12 in the SEC, going back to the last 12 games, and they finally won an SEC game under Lebby. Things were looking like they're turning around. Things are looking positive in Starkville. Barstool was down there last week, and I think had a great time and had great things to say. I think their trajectory is doing this, and I think Missouri's is at best doing this, plateauing or even dropping. So the fact that you're going to give Mississippi State a touchdown, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm just going to take it. I'm going to take that because that's what feels right to me right now. Now, I may wake up on Saturday and feel differently about it, but it's a night game as well. Crazy things happen at night. So give me Mississippi State plus 7.5. My record hasn't been all that great in the last couple weeks, so why would I continue to go with my instinct when it's obviously not working all that well? Then the very last game we'll spend very little time on, but wanted to talk about it. TCU at BYU. This is the late slate. So this is a super late game for Central Time Zone, which means it's probably 9 p.m. or later. TCU at BYU. BYU minus 5.5. I'm going to take BYU minus the 5.5 here. I think that number is small enough that they can get over that pretty easily. TCU has definitely been in contention in the Big 12 and definitely been in some conversations in the Big 12. But I think when you compare them to some other teams, obviously like Texas Tech, Arizona State, and then obviously BYU, who's going in there, who's playing them this weekend, I just don't think they're really there. I think they're more on the level of like Arizona and UCF, of like teams that are definitely competitive, or Kansas State is in there, like definitely competitive, but not anybody to be worried about. You just have to play your game to beat this team. Although BYU is definitely coming off of a loss and probably very disappointed and maybe still thinking about it a little bit, I don't think it's I just don't think that number should be this small. I think they're going to be motivated coming off of the loss. They're going to be pissed off coming off of a loss. They're at home at night. They need a win to stay alive, and I think they can do it. So I think, to me, 5.5 has seemed very, very small. So give me BYU minus 5.5 at home. And that is a show. I'm actually doing really well. 48 minutes. Wow. That I really had a feeling there, probably during that Missouri rant, where I was like, I've got to be over an hour, and nobody's going to want to listen to this. So I appreciate everybody listening tonight. That's a Week 12 preview show. We got 6 games, 6 predictions right out there. So hopefully it gives you a rooting interest. Hopefully it gives you a reason to watch some of these games. Have a great weekend. Thank you again for all the support. Thank you for bearing with me in the week that we were off. It was much rest that we had. It was very, I don't know what I'm saying. It was very needed. And I feel great today. So today is like the very first day that I feel like almost 100%, just still had some like residual symptoms that just won't go away. Mostly like runny nose type stuff, but we finally feel like really, really good. And now we're going into the weekend starting tomorrow, where we're going to get to go home to Mississippi, see some folks, hang out with some people that we haven't seen in a while, some really, really awesome people, and then go to the place that I love, that I want to retire one day in Oxford, Mississippi, spend the weekend there. So have a great weekend. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy the games. Enjoy them with family. Find some rooting interest. Be excited Watch the games, have fun. They're going to be gone. They're going to be gone soon. We're merely weeks away from the end of the season, so enjoy it while you can. Um, Leave feedback, leave comments, leave likes, subscribe, whatever you want to do. We were here to take it, and we always want to make the show better. And last thing, thank you again for supporting me enough to be able to get the unique links for StubHub and Fanatics. If you have some Christmas shopping to do, please use those links. Unfortunately, I cannot get you a discount or anything at this point, but it will really help me. It will support the show, help us grow, help us improve our setup, our equipment, everything. Eventually, over time, it'll take much, much time to do that. But if you do use those links, just like you normally would if you're going to buy any of those products off of those sites, then you can at least know you are supporting me. And then eventually, as that does well, hopefully, we can get like some promo codes, get you some discounts. So, really, really appreciate the support. Love you guys. See you on Tuesday with a recap of everything that happened this weekend. But with that, we'll call it a night. Hottie freaking toddy. We'll see you on Tuesday.